Hey YouTube, it is Matt with Olympus Reptiles, and we are going to go back to our business videos, mostly because it's the only thing you guys watch. Not true, I just want to make a little joke there. But today we're going to be talking about something that is very important when it comes to ball python prices, because we're still on that kick about what is the anatomy of a ball python price. I told you I'd break down the 3 key components, which if you remember, those key components are going to be basically looks. Yeah, I was trying to get the other word we tried to use, I couldn't spell. Looks, which is desirability. Bam, that's it. Desirability, difficulty, and rarity. We already broke down looks or desirability for you, along with difficulty. So now we're going to talk about the same way I like my steaks, and that's rarity, right? Rarity. And I don't mean I like my steaks not very often. It means I like them a little bit rare and bloody, right? That's probably misspelled too. And I don't give a shit, because this is not spelling class, kids. This is ball python class day. So rarity is going to have a big, humongous factor in price. Here's the problem. This doesn't last, okay? It is a fleeting thing. It goes away. And let me explain. And now this is probably the easiest thing to see. And so whenever we're talking about price, the biggest and simplest thing that all of this plays a role into, right, is going to be S&D, which is not some weird form of Dungeons and Dragons. And it's not something that your parents did to make you. This is supply and demand, okay? This is what everything is going to factor into. Rarity, of course, affects the supply, right? So what I mean by that, if something's rare, there's not a lot of it. A great example is, we're going to talk about, well, we won't talk about that one just yet. I'll save that for a moment because it'll prove a point. So with rarity, let's go ahead and talk about a gene that's everybody's kind of love-hate relationship with right now. And let's talk about the great old gene. Kurt, what's one of your favorite genes we don't have? Somewhere where you might walk along a beach with a date at what?
Sand?
No. Let's try Caleb. Caleb, you might take a date and walk down the beach and look at what?
Sunset.
There you go. Thought your ass was going to say the water. I was going to be pissed. I was just going to quit. Sunset, right? We're going to talk about sunset. Now, sunset, before we get to the rarity part, let's talk about its looks. Some people love it. Some people hate it, right? Some people go, this is the brown snake. Some people say, oh, when you combo it, it's amazing. So this is hit and miss. It's like most ball pythons at this point. That's going to be up to interpretation. So there's that. Difficulty. It's recessive. This is no harder than pied, no harder than clown, no harder than anything. This is pretty easy to make, y'all. You breed 2 hets together, you got a 1 and 4. You breed a visual to a het, you got a 1 and 2. You breed 2 visuals, you're going to make all sunsets. So there's no secret to sunset. I mean, so why is sunset price so high? Caleb, what is a single gene sunset going for right now? He knew I was going to do this. I'm not sure why he wasn't already on Morph. Oh, he was already on Morph Market. His kid's getting good. If you guys are very quiet, oh, I got to check something. I think they just finished. I think they did. We have our first confirmed lock for rattlesnakes this year. So hopefully we'll be producing some albinos and some other things going on. What did you find?
Male for 5,000.
For 5,000? Yep. That's the cheapest one?
Cheapest.
Or the most recently, is that just a sunset?
That's just a sunset.
Whoo! Whoo! Damn. $5,000. That seems like a fair enough price. We're going to go with it. Now, I recently saw on a video when somebody was quoting the price of the most expensive snake on Morph Market. Said, yeah, not for me. That's because I'm going to share with you why that particular snake isn't for me, but it is for some people. Probably isn't even there anymore. It's probably already sold. So $5,000 for this sunset male. Is that seeming like it's about right?
There's like 14 pages to scroll through, but probably pretty close.
Okay. So what is causing this price right here? Well, let me tell you, it wasn't so long ago that the first sunsets you were seeing come to market were $30,000. And I think that was, I remember Brian Cusco popping out some sunset cinnamons, I believe it was, back in the day when sunset was first becoming a thing after he picked up some pos hets from Barcheck and bam, got lucky, which is awesome. That's one way to get into something like this for a very reasonable price. So anyway, 30 grand back in the day, and they've come down to about 5,000. So they have dropped in price, but that's because this didn't get any harder. This hasn't changed. This has. This rarity, because sunset, how many total sunsets were there for sale visual on Morph Market right now?
There is
Visual sunsets. This is where I'm going to prove my point, okay? Because sunsets 5,000. Our good old friend who we like to pick on for this is Clown, and they're like $300 now.
There's 36 visuals.
36. Okay. You can also say Pied. I'll put one that I really like on there, so y'all can pick on Clown. Pied, Clown, they're both going about $300. How many clowns are there? And we'll do Pied too. Visuals only. Visuals only.
Visuals, Clown, 4,125.
How many visual Pieds?
There is.
We'll do one more for shits and giggles.
Pied, 4,114.
Woo! Closing in, boys. Closing in. How many albinos? Visual albinos. I mean, because these are like, you know, we'll say about $300, about $300, probably about $250, 938. Okay, so the reason I picked these three is the difficulty is all the same as the sunset, right? It's all single gene recessive. It's all numbers available, numbers available, numbers available. You know, their price point, desirability is going to be pretty close to the same. Some people are going to love clowns, people are going to Some people are going to love pies, some people are going to be albino. Who the fuck doesn't love albino, man? But some people don't. I don't know what's going on with them, but some people don't. So what is really driving the price? Why is this snake 5,000 and these snakes only 300? It's right here, guys. Tells you all you need to know. So the rarity of the sunset being at 36 available instead of 4,000, 4,930 means the people that have these sunsets can say, you know what, piss on you, this is the price. And they only have to find 36 people to buy every sunset that's available. And they don't get replaced as quick because there's not as many of them out there. Clown will drive the price down. We've already seen that due to how much there is. Pied pretty much bottomed out. By the way, this 300 or so, that's going to be about the bottom for Clown, y'all. I don't think it's going to go much below that for a single gene. Maybe around 250 one day. It'd be about it. You know, albino's already there. Albino's been around so long, it's not rare, even though it's about 1/4 of them. It's kind of at its bottom there. But the amount of sunset is what drives that price up. Now, that's really simple. It's a really simple thing. Here is the problem on these, okay? Oh, shit. I lost my marker. I'll get it in a second. I'll get it in a second. So there is a problem with all this, and I'm going to share it with you guys two different ways. And then we're going to go onto Patreon, like always, talk a little more. I'm going to tell you how if I was going to jump into one of these super rare, expensive projects, how I would do it on a budget and probably have success. The budget still ain't going to be cheap, okay? There's no way to get into a super expensive project for $300. It ain't going to happen. Forget that shit. But there is a way certainly to get into it for a lot less than, you know, $10,000 to $15,000. Promise you. And I'll show you how to do that on our Patreon channel. So let's take that sunset versus that Clown. How long has Clown been out? Does it show that on there? I mean, late 90s, early 2000s, sometime in there? Like 2007 maybe?
He used to know.
He used to know. That's why I asked him. But Sunset came out probably circa 2017 maybe? Somewhere in that neighborhood?
Clown came out in 1999.
So Clown, 1999.
Sunset?
Yeah. And Sunset came out in probably, it's 2000 and something.
2012.
2012. Okay. So 10 years ago. Which you're going to think, well, 10 years, man, 10 years is a long time. But when you're dealing with producing recessives, because it does up that difficulty a notch, and somebody's going to have to be, I mean, it's a lot harder to get these produced. These are usually started from one animal coming in, so that one person has to raise that animal up, make their own hets, hold back their own hets. I mean, it's a pain in the ass, okay? So that's kind of how that works. This was started by VPI, also known as the Barkers. I do happen to know that. This was started by BB. Because Barchek is really hard to spell. So, what's that?
I thought you had albino and so up there. I was thinking about those years. But...
Nah, we'll just go with these two because I know who started them. So, the difference that we've seen in those last, I mean, again, 1999, 2012. So, I do think Sunset probably took a little longer to truly catch hold. I think that was due to a multitude of factors. At the time, in my personal opinion, Barchek was going through some stuff that he didn't deserve to have to go through with some negative press that probably wasn't warranted from a pissed off employee who was just angry he got fired. Here's the thing I'm going to tell you all, side note, okay? Never, ever, 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 ever listen to a guy who got fired from a job about what that place is like, because you're going to get a lot of bitterness. I'm not talking about just in this aspect. I'm talking about anywhere. If some dude's like, yeah, I hate those places there. They did this and they did this and they did this, and then they fired me. So if you're telling me that their standards are really low, but yet you got fired because you didn't meet their standards, so always take those kind of things with a grain of salt. But because that was being gone through right there, there was also an employee that stole a bunch of them, if memory serves. Isn't that correct? There was a theft of some of that, an internal theft that he went through. So some of that slowed the proliferation of Sunset down a little bit, you know, but then it did start to take off. And now it's out there. You can easily find it. This has been out for 13 years longer. So if you give, now that this is established, because again, it takes those recessives, I shouldn't say this, now that this is established, because it takes those recessives longer, because it's like this. You got one, make some hets, and then maybe you can breed and get three. I mean, it just is slower. Where if you had something that was incomplete dominant, it spreads a lot faster, you know, because you're making visuals and more visuals and just boom, 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 boom. So as these build on top of each other and everything's exponential, you are going to see, and I know somebody's going to get mad at me for this, okay? But I'm going to say, come back. Today is December, let me double check my watch, 13th of 2022, okay? I will probably re-release this video, at least a part of it, in like 3 years from now. And you're going to watch Sunset do this. That is Sunset's trajectory, okay? It's 5,000 a day. In 3 years, it will no longer be 5,000. I promise. Guaranteed. It's going to take a slide down. Now, if it was an incomplete dominant, it would be like this, okay? So, like, it would go down a hell of a lot faster. But it's recessive. It's going to, you know, I mean, it shouldn't be really a straight line. It's going to be more like that. But it is going to go down. And the reason is because more people have it. So it's those three, then it turns into these guys, and the next generation has these guys, then the next generation has this many. And before long, it's like population. Population growth of China is way bigger than it used to be because, well, you know, people have babies, same thing here. More and more and more of them are going to be out there pushing the rarity down. Eventually, Sunset will get to the point of being just like clown. Okay? It will. Which will be just like albino, just like axanthic, just like all those that have been around a long time. And what I mean by that is where the rarity is taken out of the equation because it won't be rare anymore. However, right now it is. Rarity is a closing window when you're talking about ball python pricing. It's going to start and it's going to push things very, very high. And if you think about it, we already said we started at 30,000. And in this short time of 10 years, we've lost $25,000 in value. That's a lot of value, y'all. That's a lot of value. However, if you're still making money, if you bought one at 30, because if you're selling snakes every year at 5, you're still making money. But that is a huge percentage of value. So if you just run that out, you know, in the next 10 years, if it follows the exact same trajectory, which I think it'll actually increase because more and more people produce it, you're going to probably take that off right there. And you're probably going to change that to maybe this. Maybe. Of course, that's $2022 if we keep certain politicians in office. And I don't pick a party. It's all of them. That's probably going to be like 100 and that because, you know, they're stupid. But anyway, those prices are going to come down. It's just the way this game works. It's always worked that way. It always will work that way. And there's nothing we can do about it. Again, I went off on a little bit of a tangent the other day on a live video, and I'm going to kind of discuss that because rarity is a factor that people don't understand on this. This is where people get lost. And it's sad because they should know better. I mean, they've been in it, some of them a long time. And some of it's just not wanting it to be. Some people understand it. They just don't want it to be true. You know, and that is a snake or combo. Now, anything with recessive is going to take longer. Combos do this too. Look at bumblebee combos. Look at GHI Mojave combos. Any combo that's been out there, the more difficult the combo is, the rarer it's going to stay. We're talking 4, 5, 6 genes. It's going to be a difficult combo to make. It's always going to be kind of rare. But if all those parts are common, it's still going to take the rarity kind of out of it. So if you can keep desirability in a hard combo, you're always going to have some rarity there. But what happens is a snake that people jumped in for 3,000, and then now today's market, they're ready to get 750 for it. They're pissed. They're pissed because they're like, oh, and so then you see people say, well, what we need to do, y'all, is we need to hold our prices. We just need to get together and we need to hold our prices. We need to say this, no. We need to say, no, we're not doing that. It's going to be here. And by God, if we just all come together and say we're going to do that, then it's going to stay there. And that sounds great. Problem is, when you start doing that, and there's 4,000 clowns out there, you're going to have to get at least 500 people, because not every one of those clowns is owned by a different person, right, to sell them, to hold that price. Okay? You're not going to do it. It's not going to happen. What's going to happen is they're going to go to shows or sell online, and somebody's going to realize, hey, I'm new and I've got these clowns, and they're not selling because this guy who's known better, all his clowns are selling and mine aren't. So what do I need to do? Out of that 500, now you only have 499. He breaks rank. His, what did we say it was, a $3,000 snake? He says, you know what? I'm going to sell it for $2,800. Maybe that $200 difference will get some to bite. Then somebody else breaks rank, and it's $2,700. And you can see on down. That's why you can't hold it. You know, you're never going to get everybody to get on board, because people have bills to pay and mouths to feed, and they're going to do what they need to do to sell their animals. That's how free market works. That's how it's supposed to work. If it ain't doing that, then it ain't going to work at all. Eventually, you'll get to a price level, and it may be at 750 we wrote, where what tends to happen is now, because again, we've lost our rarity, right? So we can't set up here and demand this anymore. Now it's common. Everybody and their brother has one. There's 500 people out there selling them, and that price drops, and we're going to get to a point where the price will hold for that combo, whatever it is, because there's enough of people now that want to buy them that they're going to buy them right around there. They're not going to have to wait or compete, or there'll be enough. It'll bottom out at a certain point. That's how it's worked since the beginning of time. So to think anything else is going to happen different is just ignoring history of the ball python market, or history of any market. I mean, history of the car market. Although you're saying, well, Matt, cars have gotten more expensive. That is true, because we put more crap in them and we build in rarity with things like Teslas, or things like, you know, I mean, you can pick whatever luxury European car you want. We build in rarity. But in ball pythons, this is going to go away. The only way you can maintain rarity in a ball python would be to not sell it. Okay? And we're working on a project right now that we're calling the Hellfire Project. I'll even pick on that project. Hellfire. We're still working on it, so we can't say for sure it's new. So the prices reflects that. If we can prove it new, let's say we do. So we prove it new. And let's say we prove it to be really cool in some combos. Those two things happen, and those two together would do what to the desirability? You're going to push it through the roof, right? And then it's rare, so then the price goes crazy. Woohoo! Crazy money. But yet you wait a few generations, and the rarity goes down, right? And then it's doing the same thing. So this isn't a knock on any genes. Things we work on are going to do the same thing, and I'm okay with it. I expect it to happen. I know it's going to happen. I don't care that it's going to happen. It's the way it works. It's the way it works. So that is how rarity affects pricing. Kurt, anything you want to add about rarity?
The only thing that I would kind of correlate this to, I used to know people that would raise dogs.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a dog breed out there that only a handful of people in America had that would breed them.
What was the name of that dog?
Klekai.
Kleikais.
And what they would do is when they would sell you a dog, they would require you to get it fixed, and you would have to show the paperwork that you got it fixed within so long, or you got to pay a fine. This
is a great example, by the way. It's Alaskan Klekai. How much were they selling those dogs for? Do you remember back in the day?
Like $3,000 to $5,000.
$3,000 to $5,000. Okay, and that was for one that couldn't breed, right? No breeding. Okay. Fast forward in time to about 3 years ago in October. This guy right here actually bought a Klekai. We're gonna share my dog's name. It's pretty cool. His name is Mr. Beauregard Jangles. Bojangles. Bojangles cost me. Now I got him on sale. He was all white. I wanted the dog for the personality. I didn't really, with blue eyes, which is actually not as desirable as a colored one anymore because of some breed standard thing. For, I think it was $500, maybe it was $750, somewhere in that neighborhood. But from $3,000 to $5,000. And they didn't give two shits if I bred it. They just gave me paperwork, said do what you want. Now I fixed him. He wasn't bought for breeding purposes. He was bought to be mine and my wife's buddy. But my point being, and plus a few other things he does, help out in the household. But anyway.
So what I was saying is they were trying to artificially keep the price up. It's like if we would sell a snake and would say, well, you need to get it fixed so it can't produce.
Right. So they were keeping the rarity up to hold that price. Yeah. And even doing that, certain people, eventually it still came back down. But you're right. And you can't really do it with snakes because in our snake world, people were buying these dogs anyway because they're badass dogs. You've never seen them. It's like having a husky that's supposed to be pocket sized unless you got Mr. Beauregard Jangles, who's kind of a freak. He's a little bit bigger than most of them. And so they were super desirable. But we can't sell snakes, no matter how desirable they are, and say, hey, you have to fix this snake. People aren't going to do that. Nobody's going to pay me $8,000 to $12,000 for a snake that they can't breed. It's just not going to happen. It's not the way our market works. But that's a good point. They were artificially keeping the rarity up to push that. Anything else you want to add? No. Caleb, you're sitting back there. What do you think?
Yeah, I didn't know about that Alaskan Klekai thing. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting business model, but
that's actually
for dogs.
Really common in dogs, though.
Yeah, it works for dogs. It wouldn't work here.
And I'm sure they'd sell you one that you could breed, but you're going to add a lot more to that price. Yeah. You're going to add a lot more to that price.
Yeah, I don't know. Like you're saying, it's not something you could really do with snakes just because, that's sometimes what the desirability of the morph is you can breed it and you take that project in the direction you want to go. And Rarity, the only way Rarity holds is if it's a recessive, it's going to hold out longer than, incomplete dominant, but even then, eventually it collapses on itself.
It does. It does. And that's just because the incomplete dominants, they produce so much faster. You can take an incomplete dominant male. If I take an incomplete dominant recessive gene, I breed it to 3 females, they produce no visuals. I'm having to hold those heads up for 3 more years and breed them. So it slows that whole process down. I take an incomplete dominant male and I bring them to 3 females. I'm going to produce 6, 12, 18 eggs, 9 visuals. Well, shit. I could have 3 males. I could produce 27 visuals. But not only can I do that, so can anybody else that gets one, right? And that's why you see the incomplete dominant, like Banana, go from 20K to, what are they now? About $200, to 200. And the guys, that happened. And the Banana's a rare thing because it was super highly desirable. People were getting into it. And that happened over the time of about, let's call it 2012 to 2022. And the biggest drop happened before 2015.
But that one had a special case too.
There was a little bit of special case because it produced more males. So we have the male makers, so we're getting more and more males out there pushing more and more males, which then in turn gets bred to more and more females. So this one accelerated faster than most. But it still is a great example of what Rarity can do in a very short time. We actually bought our male in 2014 for like $350, $400. Bananas kind of bottom out because the desirability is still high because of the beauty of it as a baby. Nobody, though, in ball pythons, this is a dirty little secret, okay? But it's the truth. We're all about being full disclosure here, right? We all as ball python breeders, and I know there's a Facebook crowd right now and people who comment here and comment everybody else's channel about, oh my God, you keep animals in cages, you terrible people, and blah, 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 and all about the money and keeping racks about money and all that. Guess what? They're right. We're not terrible people, though. But the fact of the matter is, if you're running rack systems like this, I'm not talking for a guy who has a 5-stack, okay? A guy can have a 5-stack and still be just a dude who wants to keep some animals. You're not going to have what we have, or God forbid what the larger breeders have, and not have an eye on this. Okay? It's just not going to happen, y'all. And you're not going to invest, you know, over $1,000 per snake a lot of times without an eye on this. In the dog world, people will do that. It's because that dog is such a more personal, intricate part of their life. You know, but in the snake world, you can get something that is just as pretty. It's not going to work. You know, people buy dogs to work. They'll pay a lot of money for a dog that works cattle well. They'll pay a lot of money for a dog that does certain things well for hunting. I mean, your dad used to have some hunting dogs, if I remember right. I mean, he's going to be willing to pay more for a good hunting dog or a good bloodline than, you know, because it's doing a job. Whereas your snake doesn't really do a job other than make you smile, which is a big job. But people aren't going to pay this unless it's about money. And that's just a sad truth, you know, and then we're in the same boat. Every snake I paid a lot of money for, I've intended to breed, with almost no exception. You know, there's a handful of things that we'll buy that we may pay that for, that we'd have no real intent to breed, but we're also going to use it for a YouTube channel and to show it off, and I can now justify having it at least in my brain. But it is going to be a money thing. So you're not going to sell high-end snakes unless it's to somebody who wants to breed them. I just don't see that happening. If we didn't have that market, we wouldn't exist in our house of cards. But it's a fun hobby, and that's the thing that's going to always drive it. Because there's a hobby here, and it doesn't have to be large, you'll always have a market for these. This isn't a sky is falling part. The sky is not falling, but we are definitely hobby-oriented. Anything else you guys want to add? They're like, no, please shut the hell up. We added something, you talked for 10 more minutes. Just we're going to keep quiet so you'll be done. All right, guys, that is all I got. Thanks for watching. That kind of comes down to Rarity. And that just kind of concludes our pricing series. We may come up with some more business series, as we'll call it like the whiteboard files, or I don't know, something fun. I'll think of something later, or I won't. I don't really care at this point. I had too much caffeine today, if you can't tell. All right, guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.